Well, it's June 1st, which means that it's the start of meteorological summer, so that's a good sign. But it's also the start of hurricane season. In the Atlantic, that is. The East Pacific started on the 15th of May, but we care about the Atlantic here, and the Atlantic started off with a bang this year. We have technically our second disturbance of the year. Our first disturbance happened in the middle of January, but we have Tropical Depression 2 hovering around in the Gulf of Mexico, currently at 35 mile an hour maximum sustained winds, 1,007 millibar minimum central pressure, and it is moving west-northwest at 2 miles an hour. This storm will be hovering around the Gulf of Mexico, so let's see all the specifics about the first storm of the year. Tropical Depression 2 will be hovering through the east central Gulf of Mexico over the next few days. As on Thursday, this storm became officially the first tropical depression of the official hurricane season. We're going to see this storm eventually become a tropical storm according to the National Hurricane Center. Then, around 1 a.m. Saturday morning, Eastern Time, we will see this digress back into a tropical depression before going post-tropical on Sunday as the storm heads towards the western part of Cuba. Now, the storm is not going to be very potent. If it does get to tropical storm strength, it will be fairly weak. So that is something that we don't really have to worry about, but this is a good sign that things will be working their way into the tropics in the future. So on satellite imagery, Tropical Depression 2 does not look very impressive. Obviously, there is a cluster of thunderstorms just off the panhandle of Florida at the moment, but you can see a little bit more in the daytime than at night, of course. That little area of rotation just to the south of Pensacola. So that is the actual main center of low pressure, and that is what we're going to be watching, what the winds are and what the pressure is at that spot. So even though all of the thunderstorms are well off to the north and east of the main center of the low, the main center is what we're looking for. So let's talk about the projected track of Tropical Depression 2, whether it's a tropical storm, whether it's a post-tropical cyclone. This is where the low pressure will move according to spaghetti models, which is basically where the model is slightly tweaked, giving slightly different conditions, and seeing how that low pressure moves. So here is our overall global hurricane guidance, showing that general south to southeast track, and then a swing up to the northeast right after it gets towards Cuba. Same deal with the GEFS, showing that hook curve, and the GEPS. Now, in terms of intensity guidance, kind of showing just the tropical depression, which for the beginning of the year kind of sucks, but that's usually what happens. Here is the HWRF hurricane model showing Tropical Depression 2 pretty much staying that way, showing that overall max sustained wind speed hovering right around that 34 mark, which is the boundary for tropical storm status. So there's a little hint of green in there, which is 34 knots, but kind of staying in those dark blues, which is just below that threshold. It also shows the simulated radar, those thunderstorms getting more tightly wrapped around the center of the low pressure, with the minimum pressure being 1,000 millibars, and that occurs around early morning on, actually late afternoon Friday.